Mark, how we handling the loss out there?
I'm handling it just fine. Like, I take personal responsibility because, like, Sean Payton listens to my show as he's driving into work in Denver on 104.3 The Fan. But we booked a weatherman late in the show in the 9 o'clock hour. He's game planning at that point. So apparently he didn't know there was going to be a storm in the second half. That's why field goals were imperative in the first half. So I'll take personal responsibility for costing the Broncos a championship game because of my blunder scheduling the weatherman late.
So let's go back to that. Stink. The 4th and 1 play, like, look, I don't know if any of us know half as much about ball as Sean Payton will say, but could you believe at the time, figuring that it was going to be a defensive struggle and points would be at a premium, that he chose to go for it and called a play-action pass like that so early in the game?
I was surprised, and once again, I got invited to Peyton Manning's suite. And I was standing there with Peyton Manning, with Brandon Stokely, Terrell Davis, and Mike Shanahan. And every one of us said, kick it. Just kick it. Like, this game, kick it. At that point, New England had 12 plays on offense for 12 total yards. And you know, frankly, and Drake May was unbelievable down the stretch with his scrambles and all that stuff, the 3rd down and 6 conversion to salt the game away. Absolutely unbelievable. But at that point, he looked a little rattled. And, you know, and the Broncos defense was playing lights out. We were all sitting there going, hey, man, a 10-point lead with the weather and what's going to happen here, and as good as your defense is playing, like, it just puts and shifts more pressure over to New England. So every one of us in that suite were like, hey, kick it, just kick it. And, of course, you know, they go for it. And I understand hindsight's 20/20, but the Broncos haven't been a great red zone team. They've got a backup quarterback. You know, the odds are, even if you converted there, you're still going to end up settling for the field goal. So hindsight's always 20/20. It's easy to speculate, but I just thought going up 10, a 2-score game at that point with the Patriots really struggling on the offensive side of the ball would have, helped you get a victory. But again, like I said, you know, it's always one of those things. It's easy to speculate after the fact.
Mark, around here, we've heard it a lot over the last 25 years or so. The better team didn't win, and we heard it this week from Nick Benito. So, your opinion, did the better team win the AFC Championship?
I don't know, the better team won as much as the team that didn't make the major mistakes. Like, I thought the team that executed, that understood the conditions, I thought the team that made better coaching decisions won. And so that would be, you know, ultimately that would be the better team winning on Sunday. So I guess I'll give that to you. You know, I was just really disappointed in the lack of ability to run the football. Schematically, I thought we got our asses kicked. I thought New England did a great job, even on that 4th and 1, the late shift down to almost a 6-1 type of goal line defense. The Broncos, 2 guys on the front side of that play blocked nobody. There's 2 free runners, Williams being one, and I don't remember who was playing the edge, whether it was Kason or whoever, but I mean, 2 free runners. You didn't block anybody on that particular play. So that said, you got to tip your cap to New England because they did a phenomenal job. On Sunday, they were the better team.
Mark, did you ever play in conditions that changed so radically during the course of a game? Because obviously the weather was a massive factor in the game being so tight. Later on in the game, Lutz only lines up for his field goal 7 yards back, not 8, which allows a practice squad call-up to get a fingertip on it, a kick and a block that was massively consequential in the game. Did you ever play in such wild changing conditions like that?
No, not really. Not that became that way during the course of a game, because at the beginning of the game was pretty decent and, you know, at least good football weather. But hell, man, I have been in Denver, Colorado for 30 years now, and I've literally been at one of my son's baseball games where it was 75 and I was in shorts and a T-shirt in the first inning, and by the second inning, it was 32 degrees and snowing. and had to run up to the truck. I used to carry a coat, mittens, pants in my truck during baseball season in the spring. The weather can change. So there's that capability. But I really never played in a game where maybe it started raining during the game, but never that kind of dramatic change.
Insider calls are brought to you by Nationwide for your insurance and financial needs. Nationwide is on your side. Before we move on to the Super Bowl and this big game, big matchup, I wanted to get your thoughts as a local guy. What's gone on the last couple days? You have Sean Payton fire his offensive coordinator. Then he talks about Bo Nix's injuries, so much so that Bo Nix apparently calls a press conference to tell him he was wrong. Is there some infighting going on with the Broncos after this loss?
Yeah, it feels like that. I mean, like everybody you've got to take it's got to be a sacrificial lamb when it comes to losing. It certainly doesn't feel like they've handled. You fire your offensive coordinator, but really, from a game planning standpoint and execution of plays standpoint, Sean's the one that calls them. You have the ultimate authority, so the whole Joe Lombardi thing felt a little fishy. And then, I think that there is, the interpretation of injuries sometimes you can just kind of misinterpret those. I don't know, but Bo Nix certainly didn't seem like he was happy with it. So, yeah, it does feel a little bit squirrely at best. And Sean also criticized how the offensive line played, rightfully so, because I've been on the soapbox. It doesn't make me real popular here in Denver of saying, man, they get rated as one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in football, and I think they're massively overrated. And I think it showed in Sunday's game. And I'm not trying to discredit New England because I think they're awesome on their front seven. But they did a phenomenal job. And from a game planning standpoint, guys, what they did, inserting safeties, having kind of cross dogs with safeties and linebackers, they consistently got free downhill runners at the running backs because the Broncos just couldn't sift through that traffic. And I thought that was unbelievable game planning by the New England Patriots. Good for them because I thought it was exceptional as I went back through the coaches' film.
So, all right, we're now moving on to Super Bowl 60, 10 days away in Santa Clara. Mark, what's your first thought about the matchup of the Patriots versus Seahawks? And what do you think it is New England is doing best right now that'll give them a chance?
Well, I think defensively they're playing awesome. Like I said, it's funny. A couple years ago, the Broncos had the 31st best ranked roster by a bunch of national publications and, sites and things of that nature. And I was here on the radio going, just because you don't know any of the names doesn't mean they're a bad roster. They've got actually a very good roster. And, I think the same thing about the New England Patriots. People always talk about, well, they didn't play good quarterbacks and they didn't have a great strength of schedule and this, that, and the other. And all I say is if you watch their defense, their front seven play football, they're exceptional. They've got the right guys. And I think one of the things, about building a culture and stuff, it's not just about having the good football players or great football players or great talent. It's about having the right football players, the right talent. And I think they've nailed that through free agency, through their draft, the direction they've gone in. I think their back end is playing exceptionally well also with Gonzalez and all those guys. And so I think defensively, their defense will be able to keep them in any game. And as long as they don't turn the ball over, which they did in the AFC Championship game, Drake May goes in there. I think they gave up 10 sacks in the first 2 playoff games. If I'm not mistaken, it was like 6 fumbles and 3 lost fumbles, and he maintained the ball. And one thing he does exceptionally well, guys, is when things aren't there for him, his ability to pull the ball and run and scramble for first downs, I thought was a big difference in the game with the Broncos. So as long as they lean on that defense, I think this game will be tied. I think they'll be in this game.
What do you think about the matchup for that defense going against obviously one of the best wide receivers in football in Jackson Smith and Jigba? But around here, I think a lot of fans are holding out hope that Sam Darnold could be the difference. He did lead the NFL in giveaways. He famously, against the Patriots, was seeing ghosts years ago. Sam Darnold, is he the guy that could lose the Super Bowl for the Seahawks?
Yeah, but I tell you what, the last 6 weeks or so, he's been exceptional. And he's been a guy that'll take a sack, understanding how good his defense is, understanding how good his football team is. And I will say one thing about the Seattle Seahawks. I had a coach tell me years ago, he goes, want to know like how deep a football team is? Watch their special teams. Watch how they cover kicks. Watch how they return. Watch what they do on special teams. And I think Seattle's been exceptional throughout these playoffs on their special teams. Smith and Jigba is like that dude. Again, this goes back to combine stuff. Another thing that I get, my panties in a wad over. Being able to bench press 225 a bunch of times doesn't make you a good football player. It makes you really good at benching. And running fast, running 4.340s doesn't make you a good football player. It makes you really fast or a good track star. Smith and Jigba was a 4.52, 4.55 40 guy. But that dude is uncoverable. He has been absolutely unreal, creating separation at the top of his routes and then yards after catch once he gets it. And I just think they're exceptional that way. Sam Darnold, as long as he plays with the maturity that he showed here in the last few weeks, last 4 or 5 weeks, I think they've been the best team in the NFL the last 5 or 6 weeks total. So, but it should be, this is a great matchup without question.
Do you have a slightly too far out idea of who you're going to pick, or is that going to have to cook up over the next 10 days?
No. My first blush would be, and I've done both of these teams, I've called games for both Seattle and New England. I think it's a really close matchup. I think overall, based on the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season, I think that Seattle is the best football team in the National Football League. I think they're playing the best football. But again, that's what I love about the NFL. Like, it's one game at your best. Can you win it? I won a Super Bowl as an 11.5-point underdog with the Denver Broncos. So it's not one of these best-of-7 series like in hockey or basketball or baseball. It's one and done. And if you put the game plan together and you execute, you don't turn the ball over, you can win. I think this is a tight game all the way down. I'm taking the Seahawks, but, hey, listen, man, I also took the Broncos, and that just kicked me right in the nether regions.
Mark, before we let you go, you mentioned it. You've been in the Super Bowl. You know that this is a really big game, a lot of pressure, hype, everything. These are two teams that, haven't been there and done that. This is not, Mahomes Chiefs, Brady's Patriots, anything like that. Two coaches that are relatively inexperienced in terms of coaching in the Super Bowl. The quarterbacks are either young or a journeyman. Do you think that will be a factor? Could this game in this moment be too big for one of these teams or one of the key figures on one of these teams?
Always a possibility. I think sometimes not having any experience in this game plays in your favor. And I always say, listen, man, there's so much that goes on in the preparation. These next 10 days are the most important part, right? Once you get to the football field, we can sit there and say, I've played in 3 of them, and that the one against the Green Bay Packers resonates with me because it's the smallest offensive line against the biggest defensive line. They don't stand a chance. They don't this, that, and the other. All these different factors, and all that stuff is motivating, and you focus, and you get ready to practice, and you play, and you do all that stuff. But once the ball's kicked off and you get that first hit, I never one time thought about, man, these guys didn't think we were big enough. These guys disrespected us. You're just playing football. So the team that settles in and just plays it like any other football game is usually going to execute better than the other team and is usually going to come out on top.
It's going to sound like a weird question, but what are you doing this weekend? What does a guy like Mark Schlereth do on the weekend in between when there's no football to watch?
Well, I'm making a quick trip up to Spokane. Not to be a downer, but my college roommate's mother is dying of cancer, so I wanted to go say goodbye. So that's what I'm doing this weekend.
Well, you just made me sad for asking that question and sad in general, but... Well,
I want to tell you the truth.
I appreciate it.
88
That's the name of the podcast.
88 years old, and she has had a wonderful life, and she's like a second mom to me. And I'm just trying to honor her and love on her this weekend. So I got a free weekend to do it, and I bought myself a ticket, and here I go.
That's awesome. I won't say enjoy that, but hopefully that goes as well as could be expected, and we'll talk to you soon.
I appreciate that. Didn't mean to bring you down, but nothing but love for you guys.
All right, thanks, Mark. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you.
Stink. Appreciate you.